What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today we're doing a deck analysis for Single Strike Urshifu VMAX Umbreon VMAX in the standard format of the Pokemon TCG as of January 22 with the 2022. Yeah, 2022. That's the year we're in. With Fusion Strike being the newest set. Before we get into this deck analysis on this really strong archetype in standard format, shout out to PotownStore.com, the best place to get PTCGO codes, and CardTrooperGames.com, where you can find physical Pokemon TCG product like booster boxes, including Brilliant Star pre-orders for I think about $110 after using code CELIO for 5% off. You can find all of my standard format deck lists at PokemonCard.io, and also check out my collaborative content I'm creating over at Beast Coast Pokemon's new YouTube channel. You can find all of that in the description down below. And if there's anything I don't cover in this video, feel free to ask me questions in the comments. Now let's get into it. So Single Strike Urshifu VMAX has a ton of support. It has the Hound Doom that accelerates Single Strike energy. It has Single Strike energy itself. It has Umbreon VMAX as a fantastic backup attacker and also utility with the Dark Signal ability. It has Tower of Darkness as a stadium to bump things like Path to the Peak or Galar Mine, while also giving you a little bit of an extra draw utility. And it has Urn of Vitality that gets your Single Strike energies back. And we'll be using all of that in this deck, as well as the newer, Morpeko Single Strike Pokemon. So Single Strike has a lot of support, just like Rapid Strike and Fusion Strike have. So this is just the culmination of the archetypal support that Single Strike has surrounding its best cards, in my opinion. So Single Strike Urshifu V, let's start there, because something you should know going into this deck is that the Vs are fantastic attackers a lot of the times, not just the V Maxes. In a lot of decks that you'll see in standard format, the V is just there to get to the VMAX because you have to evolve into the VMAX. But in this deck, Single Strike Urshifu V and Single Strike Umbreon V are both good attackers in their own rights. Sometimes you will choose to specifically attack with the V forms of Urshifu or Umbreon just so your opponent is knocking out a 2-prizer in return as opposed to a 3-prizer. However, sometimes you will still need the added bonus of the VMAXs, whether it's for extra damage or having extra HP or using the Dark Signal ability that's on Umbreon VMAX. There will be plenty of times when you want to evolve into one of the VMAXs. So this is a really cool deck in that right, because you aren't just using the VMAXs, you can also use the V Pokemon to a very large extent compared to most other standard format decks. So Single Strike Urshifu V has the first attack, Laser Focus. You can search your deck for up to 2 basic fighting energies and attach them to this Pokemon. Some lists are running 0 fighting. Lists originally played 2 basic fighting. I'm just running the 1 basic fighting. You can get that 1 energy of value out of Laser Focus sometimes, but more, more often than not with Laser Focus, if you do Laser Focus, a lot of times your opponent's just going to knock it out anyway. So a lot of times it's just better to switch into something else and leave your Urshifu V on the bench, or just attach to a benched V Pokemon if your Urshifu V is in the active. But sometimes Laser Focus can be an okay attack, and in this list specifically, you can get a maximum of just the 1 basic fighting energy out of the deck and attach it to Urshifu. Now, Urshifu V also has the Impact Blow attack, which does 180 damage, and then you can't use it next turn. For all of the Single Strike Pokemon's attacks, keep in mind that Single Strike Energy boosts their damage output by 20 damage per Single Strike Energy. So, if Single Strike Urshifu V has 2 Single Strike Energies attached to it when using Impact Blow, it will do 220, and that knocks out just about every V Pokemon that you'll see played in the game right now. Single Strike Urshifu VMAX, we are playing 2 of this, and it's 330 HP, so it's very, very bulky, and will be hard to knock out for anything that's not hitting it for weakness. It has 2 attacks, Beat Down, it does 100. Of course, like I said, you can use Single Strike energies to boost that, so it can do like 160 if you have 3 Single Strike energies on it. Beatdown will typically just be used to finish something off, set something up for a later knockout, or hit something that's weak to it. Like if you hit a Jolteon VMAX with Beatdown and you have 3 single strike energies attached, that will knock out. Because Gmax 1 blow for 4 energy does 270, and it goes through all effects. This damage is not affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon, but you have to discard all energy attached to Urshifu to use that Gmax 1 blow. So sometimes it's better to be more efficient and use Beatdown or Impact Blow when possible. But Gmax 1 blow can essentially knock out anything. It can go through things like Zamazenta V, the Duraludon VMAX, Decidueye from Darkness Ablaze, because it's not affected by effects. So it can go through any kind of walling effect or any damage reduction effect, anything like that. And if you have 2 single strike energies on single strike Urshifu VMAX, this will do 310. If you have 3 single strike energies, it will do 330. And if you have all 4, it'll do 350. But having 3 single strike energies on single strike Urshifu VMAX is not going to be very hard because of Hound Doom. And that 330 Gmax 1 blow. Excuse me again. Gmax 1 blow will knock out just about anything if you have those 3 single strike energies on it. Then we have Umbreon V and VMAX. Umbreon V, 200 HP Dark. It has the Mean Look attack for Dark Energy. It does 30, and during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. This is kind of just an attack to keep in your back pocket and remember, hey, if there's ever a turn where I need to stall for 1 turn, and I think my opponent's out of switches, maybe I can Mean Look them and they can't retreat. Like if I bring up something useless like a Crobat and Mean Look it for 30, can't retreat. That gives me an extra turn to get things going. And then Moonlight Blade is pretty useful. If it has any damage on it, it does 160. And of course, that's before adding any damage with single strike energies. Umbreon VMAX, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active. So it's basically a boss's orders effect, a gust effect, whatever you want to call it, when you evolve this Umbreon VMAX down. So that's super duper strong. And then Max Darkness does 160. Max Darkness, of course, uses dark, colorless, single strike energy, accounts for either dark or fighting. And if you have 2 or 3 dark single strike energy on this Pokemon, you'll be boosting your damage by 20 times the amount of single strike energies. And you can also notably have 2 capture energies on Umbreon VMAX and just 1 single strike energy and still be able to attack. Umbreon VMAX actually doesn't need its attack boosted to knock out anything that is weak to it. Max Darkness, just the flat 160, knocks out Mew V, and it knocks out Mew VMAX. It knocks out Dragapult V, Dragapult VMAX. It knocks out Shadow Rider, Calyrex V, and VMAX. And as well as the Moonlight Blade, as long as you have damage on you. The 160 will knock out anything Dark weak that's in the metagame right now. So these are great Pokemon, not just for the Dark Signal ability, but also for the Dark type advantage against Mew VMAX. Morpeko is a new card from Fusion Strike, and it has the Explosive Discontent attack. Now, this little guy only has 50 HP, but it is a single strike Pokemon, and this attack for 1 Dark Energy does 30 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So you can use Hound Doom's Single Strike Roar to accelerate 2 single strike energies to Morpeko, or you can use 2 different Hound Doom's abilities to do it twice. And each time you use that ability, you put damage on the Pokemon you attach to. So this Morpeko will have 2 single strike energies and 4 damage counters on it, which means Explosive Discontent will do 120 plus 20 plus 20 for the 2 single strike energies. That's 160, thus knocking out anything Dark weak. Knocking out Mew VMAX, Shadow Rider, Calyrex VMAX, Dragapult VMAX, the whole thing that Umbreon also knocks out because you're reaching that 120 or 160 with the single strike energies damage mark. Hound Doom, very important. Houndour, pretty much just here to get into the Hound Doom. Hound Doom Single Strike Roar, you may search your deck for a Single Strike energy card and attach it to one of your Single Strike Pokemon. Then you shuffle your deck, and if you attach energy to a Pokemon this way, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Something interesting to note is that Morpeko is technically not the only single prize Pokemon in your deck. Hound Doom can also be used as an attacker if you need it to be. You can use Darkness Fang. With 2 single strike energies, Darkness Fang is doing 90. That will knock out a Mew V. That will knock out a Meloetta. That can even just put a nice chunk of damage on to set up something for later if you can't risk putting a V or VMAX Pokemon out into the active. So just something to keep in mind that Hound Doom can be used to attack. And then we play 2 Crobat V with Dark Asset. When you play it down, you get to draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. Just a nice card to refill your hand. As for trainers, we have 4 research and 4 Marnie, pretty standard, and then 2 bosses orders. We only need 2 bosses orders because we also have the Umbreon VMAX's Dark Signal to be gusting things up. We have 3 Tower of Darkness. Once a turn, that player may draw 2 cards. In order to use this effect, that player must discard a single strike card from their hand. So you can discard an extra single strike card from your hand and draw 2 cards. Can be useful sometimes. Urn of Vitality is huge because you shuffle 2 single strike energies from discard back into the deck, and Gmax One Blow can discard all 4 single strike energies all at once, so Urn of Vitality is going to get them back into the deck so you can then accelerate them again with Hound Doom. Some single strike VMAX lists choose to play Battle VIP Pass or Level Ball. Currently, I'm still a fan of playing an amount of Great Balls in the deck for the extra Pokemon search. I am playing 2 Great Balls right now. I have seen some people cut the 3rd Tower of Darkness to play a 3rd Great Ball, and then cut something else for a 4th Great Ball, maybe the last Fighting Energy. But I am pretty happy with this list at the moment. This is the one I'm comfortable with currently, and I don't think it's too far off of being the perfect 60 for the deck. I'm pretty confident that Battle VIP Pass is just too greedy, and it is not the way to play it, and that either Great Ball or Level Ball is the way, and I personally enjoyed the Great Ball variant more. The one energy might just be a safety cushion, and I might down the line decide that this one Fighting Energy is not necessary, but I do feel like having that extra energy attachment floating around in the deck is good, so you don't whiff. You're going to whiff energy attachments less if you have that one extra energy in the deck, so I think it's nice to have in there. 2 switches, 1 air balloon. If you're worried about Jolteon gusting and locking things, or decks with Galar Mine and stuff, maybe add another switch. But it's hard to have those things in the deck because most of the time you're either researching or Marnie and then playing whatever you have from your hand, which is what we'll talk about next. This deck, the way I explain it, it plays from your hand and not from your deck. When you're dealing with a deck that plays the Drizzle Inteleon engine, let's use Jolteon VMAX, for example. Jolteon VMAX will typically play down a Drizzle and get a specific card it needs out of the deck, play down a Drizzle, get a specific card it needs out of the deck, and then implement your strategy with those cards you just searched out, those specific cards. Whereas Single Strike Urshifu VMAX is going to take a couple different kinds of skills and sequencing and kind of just thought processes, because with Single Strike Urshifu, you're typically going to research your hand away, draw 7 new cards, and then you have to play with what that research gives you. Or Marnie, and you have to play with what that research gives you. Of course, we have a couple extra tools here to help us continue the turn and develop a hand. So Crobat V can then further develop your hand, and Tower of Darkness can further develop your hand. Some people play the new Pyukumuku from Fusion Strike, which allows you to put it at the bottom of the deck and draw 1 more card, which can further develop your hand. But we're not getting to search out specific cards every turn with something like the Drizzle Inteleon or Rapid Strike's Octillery, but we exchange that to play this very aggressive deck that can pretty much beat anything, and that's what we'll get to now, is the matchups and why would we play this deck. So this deck is going to feel a little more clunky and a little less consistent than some other decks, especially Drizzle Inteleon engine decks, but it exchanges that for the price of being very, very overtly powerful. Single Strike Urshifu VMAX can go through anything's effects. It can beat all the counters, and it can hit just about any amount of damage. It can go up to 350 damage with all 4 Single Strike energies on it. And this is the kind of deck where if you just want to be able to beat anything in front of you, if you're going to a locals and you don't know what the heck they're going to run, they might be playing theme decks, they might be playing fringe VMAXs you've never seen, they might be playing the best deck in format. Single Strike Urshifu VMAX can handle all of it. Whereas some other decks in the meta, let's say Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX or Jolteon VMAX, those are a little more engineered to target specific types of decks, and they could falter to the random rogue stuff that you might see in rounds 1 and 2 of a larger event. Single Strike Urshifu VMAX is the just blow up whatever's in front of you kind of deck of the format for me. Where Mew VMAX is probably the other one. Mew VMAX just has it all going for it. But this deck also has a bit of a favored matchup versus Mew VMAX. It's not perfect, but between the Umbreons and the Morpeko, you have a good amount of dark type attackers that can just take out Mew VMAXs. And Mew VMAX decks are not really engineered to be able to attack with Genesect as an off attacker, and they can really only attack with Meloetta a couple of times because it needs specifically Fusion Strike energies to be useful. Um, and then outside of that, Urshifu VMAX's one really bad matchup in the metagame, I think, is going to be Leafy on VMAX. But Leafy on VMAX is beatable, of course. Like I said, you can practically beat anything with this deck because you can just go through anything with it. It's also going to struggle against very efficient single prize decks because this can't take multiple knockouts on multiple things. It's kind of a straightforward attacker. You're not setting up damage like a Jolteon or Rapid Strike Urshifu deck would be. So things like the Galarian Moltres, Weezing, Hoopa deck, those kinds of things will potentially be a problem, but they're still on the fringier side of things, and they're not very, very popular yet, but just efficient single prize decks. I'm sorry, single prize decks. So non-V, non-VMAX Pokemon that are out trading you that are only worth one prize. Those are going to be a bit of an issue, but you do have 2 prize attackers, and you do have your Morpeko, and you even have your Hound Doom as some 1 prize attackers that you can attack with in those matchups. So if you're looking for a deck that's not too complicated, it hits hard and it hits fast, it has a couple of different mechanics going around to help you learn the game, or even if you're a master at the game and you just want to, reach the highest ceiling you can with a very aggressive deck like Single Strike Urshifu VMAX, and you want to be able to have a chance at least against anything that your opponent has in their deck, I think this is the deck. It's one of the best decks in the format. It has a pretty good matchup spread. It's just solid across the board. It's fast and aggressive. And like I said, it can even beat its bad matchups. It can go through any effects. It has the aggression of Umbreon VMAX and the high damage output of Urshifu, while also having the energy acceleration of Hound Doom and just the general support of Single Strike, the Single Strike archetype. So that is my Single Strike Urshifu Umbreon VMAX deck list and deck profile. If you have any further questions, please let me know in the comments down below. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.